Anderson. Barlow. Boner. Brennan. Case. Cooper. Crago. Crum. Dockstetter. Driscoll. French. Garou. Hicks. Hutchings. Ide. Jones. Kolb. Landon. Larson. McEwen. Nethercott. Olson. Pappas. Pearson. Rothfuss. Salazar. Schuler. Scott. Smith. Steinmetz. Hicks.
Hicks.
Hicks. Schuler.
Anybody seen Schuler today? Schuler. Okay, excused.
President Beitman.
Here.
President Beitman, 30 here, 1 excused.
Let's have order during a roll call from here on out. Okay. Pastor is Jake Merriman from Cheyenne Evangelical Free Church for the prayer of the day.
Please join me in prayer. God, you are our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. Father, I thank you that when you call us to a task, you also supply the strength that is needed to carry that task out as we look to you. I thank you for the men and women of our state Senate. Give them the strength to carry out the task before them. As they near the end of this session, help them to have the stamina and perseverance that they need to keep going until the job at hand is done. It is a great and wearisome task to which you have called each of them. Many are the requests, suggestions, criticisms, attacks, and demands that come to them that they have to navigate their way through. It requires much. Bless the work of their hands and provide for them in such a way that they will not grow weary of doing good. Supply them with the wisdom they need to recognize truth when they hear it, and the fortitude to say no when they must for the sake of what is right. Help them to contribute in such a way that when their work here is done, they would be able to enjoy a sense of accomplishment and peace. Protect and bless also their families. Care for them in the toll it takes when so much is given. As life does not pause during session, provide for every need that has come up during this time. Thank you that you are sufficient for all this and more, infinitely more than all we ask or imagine. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Senator Pearson, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's do reading, correction, and approval of journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the journal of February 25, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, Chairman.
Are there any objections? There being none, the report is adopted. Yes, sir. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, may I have brief privilege of the floor this morning?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Last night, some of you attended the reception downstairs to honor some of the photographers that were involved in the project here in the Capitol Square. I thought it might be kind of fun for you to hear a couple of stories related. I had an opportunity to meet a couple of those photographers. one of which is from the good town from Senator Boner's neck of the woods. And he represented and took the photograph as you walk into the big auditorium. If you see that sage grouse that just jumps off the wall at you, well, that was our photographer from Douglas who captured that moment. And then I visited with the photographer from Jackson, Mr. President, and this is the story that really I think will affect all of you like it did me. Each one of those photographs has a story to it. The story of the big moose, the big bull moose in the left side of the auditorium down there. He described that he was fully immersed in the river, in the water, for 50 minutes to try to wait for that big bull moose to come out into the water where he could take the shot that is now down in the Capitol Auditorium. He suffered hypothermia and had to go to the doctor on it, but he got a heck of a photograph. Really a great night to enjoy all of those images. And just a reminder, our staff has the list of all those photographers. If you fall in love with one of those photographs, you can get a print. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Landon, for that. The doctor of the day, today we have a doctor of the day, so that's always a plus. Tracy Haas. Where are you from, Tracy? Laramie. So please welcome Tracy, Dr. Haas, to the Senate. Thank you so much. All right, today in Wyoming history, in 1929, Grand Teton National Park is established. And the quote for the day from Vince Lombardi, "Winners never quit and quitters never win." And the dad joke of the day, why did the football team go to the bank? Senator Crum, any ideas? To go get their quarterback. And you may wonder why all these football references are going around. Today, we have the Pine Bluffs football team here. It is with great pride and honor that we welcome Coach Will Gray, the head football coach of Pine Bluffs High School, and assistant coaches Brian Anderson, Nick Yelton, and Carl Federer. We are also pleased to have Principal Todd Sweeter joining us today. Under Coach Gray's exceptional leadership, the Pine Bluffs Hornets have achieved remarkable success, winning the 4 state championships, including 2024 state title. Coach Gray has been the assistant coach twice in the past for the Shrine Bowl and has now been named as the head coach for the South team in the 52nd annual Wyoming Shrine Bowl All-Star football game. Fellow senators, please join me in extending a warm welcome to these distinguished guests. Now I'd like to invite senior player Justin Lerwick to say a few words.
President Beitman and Senators, we are thankful to be honored during this year's legislative session. I have been given a great opportunity to participate with some great teammates and guided by good coaches over my years at Pine Bluffs High School. I have had the opportunity to win 4 state titles between football and basketball with my teammates, 2 football and 2 basketball. We hope to add to that over the next couple months. Extracurricular activities are just that, extra. But they give opportunities to learn very valuable lessons. Championship teams are made a little bit like great legislation. The work that is seen by the general public is only a small % of the work that goes into both. We appreciate you for funding education and valuing extracurricular activities in this great state. By the end of the spring semester, our roster has or will have earned 127 college credits as a team. Our percentage of participation in extracurricular activities in Pine Bluffs is 85%. 66% of males play football at Pine Bluffs. Thank you for your thoughtful and careful work as you guide this great state to be sustainable for not only my generation, but the ones to follow as well.
Justin, there we go. Congratulations. Good job. Keep up the good work. And Here's for the coaches. All right, one more round of applause for the Pine Bluffs State Championship High School team.
For the privilege of the floor, Mr. President, I'd like to commend this awesome football team. You guys have been killing it. We're grateful for all you do, and we just know that you'll carry that on into life. And I also want to give a shout out over here. If you look to my right here, this is Mrs. Patterson's 4th grade class in Burns Elementary. And everybody stand up real fast, and let's give them a hand.
All right. Welcome, kids. Burns Elementary. Announcements, please complete your select and task force committees preferences. Please mark your first and second preferences. They are due by noon today. If you prefer a paper copy, you may get it from Kelly over here at the leadership office. And your pictures have arrived, so please pick up your pictures over there as well. Tomorrow is the last day for bills to be reported out of committee, and we're getting close to the final stretch here. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, February 25, 2025. Message number 371. Mr. President, Senate File number 98. School Board Trustees' Party Affiliations failed to pass the House on third reading. Ayes 23, noes 38, excused 1. Message number 372. Mr. President, Senate File 195, Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan Program passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 61, excused 1. House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
All right, thank you, Randy. We have some concurrences here. Looks like first one up is Senator French on Senate File 43 engrossed. Message number 354.
Message number 354, concurrence requested regarding Senate File 43, Temporary Water Use Agreements Amendments.
Thank you. Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move concurrence on message number 354 and urge you to vote no. This was thought a simple bill, temporary water use agreements amendments. What they did on the other side on page 3, line 4, after years, that insert after the expiration of any temporary transfer of any irrigation water right. The water right shall be used for its adjudicated or permitted purpose for a period of time equal to not less than 50% of the period for which the temporary transfer included any extension was exercised before becoming eligible for any further temporary use. Kind of gobbledygook. That needs to be clarified a little bit. But the main thing, the second amendment was page 2, line 17. After purposes, insert except for the beneficial use of in-stream flow identified in Wyoming Statute 41.3.101. That needs to go away, so I urge you to vote no.
Thank you, Senator French. Discussion on the concurrence request. Okay, the motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 43 and vote no. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Concurrence roll call vote, Senate File 43. Anderson? No. No. Barlow? No. Boner? No. No. Brennan? No. No. Case? No. No. Cooper? No. No. Craigo? No. No. Crum? No. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? No. French? French? No. No. Guru? No. No. Hicks? No. No. Hutchings? No. No. Ide? No. No. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? No. No. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? No. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Smith? No. Steinmetz? No. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. On the concurrent, Senate File 43, 31 no.
Thank you. By your vote, you have failed to concur on Senate File 43. Joint Conference Committee Number 1 will include Senator French, Chairman, Senators Ide and Steinmetz. Next up is Senator Boner on Senate File 119 and Gross, message number 365. We have that read in.
Message number 365, concurrence requested referencing Senate File 119, expedited professional licensure for military members.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move concurrence on message number 365, referencing Senate File 119, expedited professional licensure for military members, and ask that you vote aye. Ladies and gentlemen, three changes made with our friends down the hall all seem to improve the bill, improve upon the intent, and made it more effective. Simple one first, change from a July 1st, 2025 effective date, made it effective immediately. Number two, we had two concepts that introduced the bill based off of testimony with some of our state employees that deal with the boards in the room and providing input. The first one you see provides for a license right away if they're coming from a jurisdiction with a license in good standing and has not had an issue for more than 5 consecutive years. And so that really expedites the process, makes it clear that, if you have that 5-year time frame, you can definitely get a license within 30 days. And then on the next page, page 2, you can have a temporary license while they still go through the regular process of verifying if you have a similar license in another jurisdiction for not less than 3 years with good results there. So simply, expands upon the bill, makes it clearer. Still have that 30-day requirement, but a little bit of a distinction between a temporary license and a permanent one based off of their record in other jurisdictions. So those are the three changes they made. I'll certainly stand for any questions, but I think that improves upon the bill. It makes it easier for our military members and their spouses to get to work right away here in Wyoming.
Thank you, Senator Boner. Discussion on the concurrence, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, certainly I understand this addition, but the 5 years and 3 years, when it says another jurisdiction, that does not allow it to be cumulative with multiple jurisdictions. If I recall correctly from my military service, maybe 2 to 3 years at a duty station, 4 years, 5 would be a long time at a particular duty station. So that cumulative number seems to me to actually not give us much with this. That addition doesn't give us very much, I guess is my point. 5 years for one jurisdiction. The way I read it, it's a single jurisdiction, another jurisdiction. It's not multiple jurisdictions. So with the licensure in good standing. So I just asked that question if the good senator thinks there's a concern there. If there's not, certainly supportive of the bill, supportive of it. I just want to know if we're actually not getting to what we think we are with that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barlow. Further questions? Further questions? Back to you, Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was something that was discussed in committee on the other side. They felt comfortable with the language. It's simply another jurisdiction. It's not limiting it to one. It's not presuming there's more than one either. You can easily be at a duty station for anywhere from 2 years up to, depending on your career field, up to 10 to 15. So I understand the concern that was discussed in the House committee. it simply says it's another jurisdiction, not assuming that it's plural or not. I think everybody understands. Like I said, the state employees who help with the boards were in the room, so I think we're clear there.
Okay. The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 119 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Concurrence roll call vote, Senate File 119, Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. 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 Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 119, 29 aye, 2 no.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 119. Senator Smith.
Mr. President, privilege of the floor.
Yes.
Standing over, right there standing is former President of the Senate, Tony Ross, and next to him is Mrs. Diana Weddle and her fourth grade class out of Burns. So let's just give them a round. Stand up, guys. Stand up, all you fourth graders. We want to give you a round. Let's just, welcome, glad you're here. Glad you're here. Thank you.
Welcome, fourth graders from Burns. Good day. They got a get out of jail free card today, it sounds like. All right. What we got here, Ellen? Joint Conference Committee reports. All right. All right, message number 330.
Reference number 330, referencing Senate File 84, Country of Origin Label, USA Beef, Joint Conference Committee Report. Signed, Representatives Banks, Kelly, and Strzok, Senators Steinmetz and Kolb.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Steinmetz, are you ready on message number 330?
I am, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 to Senate File 84, Country of Origin Label USA Beef, and ask you to vote aye. Fellow senators, you remember this was our good little beef labeling bill, and what we did, I'm just not gonna take you through the amendment, I'm just gonna read you what we did. It was a good conference committee, and appreciate the good work of the House. The end result is only beef that is derived from cattle born, raised, and slaughtered and processed in the United States may clearly be labeled as a product of the United States of America. Only beef that is derived from cattle born and raised in Wyoming may be clearly labeled as a product of Wyoming. And the reason for this change, Mr. President, is because we don't have as many processing plants in Wyoming as we would like, and some producers are forced to process outside of the state, but is still Wyoming beef. And then thirdly, beef that is of indeterminable origin or that has not been born, raised, slaughtered, and processed in the United States of America shall not be labeled as a product of the United States of America. The act would be effective January 1st, 2026, so the grocers could be in compliance and we don't punitively damage them. So, Mr. President, that is what we did on this good bill, and I'd ask you to vote aye.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Discussion on the Joint Conference Committee report. Okay, seeing none. The motion is that the Senate do adopt the Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1, or Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report referencing Senate File 84 and vote aye. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Joint Conference Committee number 1 to Senate File 84. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 84, 29 aye, 2 no.
By your vote, you have adopted the Joint Conference Committee number 1 report referencing Senate File 84. All right. What else do you have in your little bag of tricks down there, Alan? Think we're ready for second? Oh, we have a standing committee report. Go ahead and read that in, Randy.
February 25, 2025. Mr. President, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 47 engrossed. Secretary of State expedited filings, respectfully reports back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Driscoll, Guru, Larson, and Smith. Excuse Senator Salazar. Senator Driscoll, acting chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Bills on second reading. House Bill 18, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 18, Career Technical Education Funding.
House Bill 18 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 311, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 311, Exemption for Transported Fuel and Power Sales Amendments.
House Bill 311 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the fastest second reading in Senate history. Bills on third reading and final passage. Hey, we do have a consent list. Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move third reading consent list as follows. House Bill 20, K through 12 school facility leasing. House Bill 36, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments. House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations Amendments. House Bill 103, Columbarium Regulation. House Bill 125, Repeal Unauthorized Use of Vehicle Crime. House Bill 129, School Finance Dates for Fund Transfers. House Bill 188, Two Families, One Nanny. House Bill 211, Hunting Wildlife from Vehicles. And House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal 3.
Thank you, Madam Majority Floor Leader. Would anyone like any of these bills removed from the consent list? Let me guess, Senator Scott.
Mr. President, can we remove House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal from consent list?
House Bill 289 has been removed from the consent list. Any others? Okay. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? House Bill 20, K through 12 school facility leasing. House Bill 36, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments. House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations Amendments. House Bill 103, Columbarium Regulation. House Bill 125, Repeal Unauthorized Use of Vehicle Crime. House Bill 129, School Finance Dates for Fund Transfers. House Bill 188, Two Families, One Nanny. House Bill 211, hunting wildlife from vehicles. The chief clerk will call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson? Barlow? Boner? Brennan? Case? Cooper? Grego? Crum? Docksteder? Driscoll? French? LaRue? Hicks? Hutchings? Ide? Jones? Cole? Landon? Larson? McEwen? Nethercott? Olson? Pappas? Pearson? Rothfuss? Salazar? Schuler? Scott? Smith? Steinmetz? President Beitman.
Aye.
On the consent list, 31 aye. House Bill 20, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 20, 31 aye. House Bill 36, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 36, 31 aye. House Bill 94, are there any changes? Rothfuss? Ida no. Case?
Case, no.
No. Guru, Ida no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 94, 28 aye, 3 no. House Bill 103, are there any changes? Case, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 103, 30 aye, 1 no. House Bill 125, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 125, 31 aye. House Bill 129, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 129, 31 aye. House Bill 188, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 188, 31 aye. And lastly, House Bill 211, are there any changes? Hutchings, aye to no. Guru, aye to no. Case, aye to no. Rothfuss, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 211, 27 aye, 4 no.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 20, K through 12 school facility leasing, House Bill 36, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments, House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations Amendments, House Bill 103, Columbarium Regulation, House Bill 125, Repeal Unauthorized Use of Vehicle Crime, House Bill 129, School Finance Dates for Fund Transfers, House Bill 188, Two Families, One Nanny, and House Bill 211, Hunting Wildlife from Vehicles, have passed the Senate. Bills on third reading. House Bill 33, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 33, Vehicle Sales and Use Tax Distribution Highway Fund, sponsored by the Transportation Committee, an act relating to sales and use tax.
There's amendments, a plethora. Can you read in the first of many?
House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 1, page 3, line 1 in.
All right, Senator Pappas, you're up first.
Oh, yeah. We are good to go. Absent objection, I would withdraw amendment number 1 to third reading of House Bill 33.
All right, absent objection, third reading amendment number 1 has been withdrawn. Third reading amendment number 2, will the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 2, page 1, line 3, after.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott.
Mr. President, absent objection, I would withdraw third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 33.
Hearing no objection, third reading amendment number 2 has been withdrawn. Third reading amendment number 3.
House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 3, corrected copy, delete.
Senator Driscoll, this one belongs to you, sir.
Mr. President, following the trend, without objection, I would ask that third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 33 be withdrawn.
Hearing no objection, third reading amendment number 3 has been withdrawn. Third reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 33.
House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 4, delete.
Senator Driscoll.
Mr. President, tired of me yet?
Not
Without
yet.
objection, I would ask that third reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 33 be withdrawn.
Thank you. Absent objection, third reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 33 has been withdrawn. I need to invest in stock and paper companies here. Third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 33.
House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 5, corrected copy, delete.
Senator Driscoll. Third reading amendment number 5. Got your name on it.
How did that Hicks? Number 5, we're at 5, thank you. Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 33. Folks, what this does is kind of runs the bill back to its original intent. The first 11 lines, or first 16 lines are the withdrawals that just happened in this amendment. Puts back in the original language that was back in through the bill, and what it really does, the meat of this one, is there's one change to it. We worked extensively. That was why your withdrawals you saw came through here. Funds collected remitted to the department under statute 3915-107BI and II for sales taxes imposed under Wyoming statute 3915-104 transferred. Goes on and on and on. Really what it does, moves it back to flat pavement only, state highways only, with one addition in there. We take the first 15 million that was coming, and that is directed directly towards the tunnels on I-80, entrance to them, and the tunnels themselves gets us money that says if federal money comes in, that money will revert back into the highway fund. If not, we have the money there to go ahead and deal with that. I'd like to give great thanks. I can't say the name, but one of the sponsors that's on the bottom of the bill to encourage us to get those tunnels in there, because we kind of excluded out the highway system. I really appreciate the help of that senator for getting it there. Also, the senator across the room that had a big part to get this where it's right. So, folks, this is general fund money. It's gonna fix a lot of problems for the highway department. I'm gonna make a promise to all of you. We all talk all the time is, why aren't we doing it a different way? Folks, we're now gonna take the money out of the general fund. We're gonna be coming back and looking at ways that we can find a way to long-term fund our highway, but this is gonna get us on the right track, and it gives us a great encouragement to find a way to fund differently if we need to. If not, we're still doing the right thing. I'd stand for questions and ask you to vote aye on this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Driscoll. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Hicks?
Mr. President, while I still have some reservations about the total fiscal note on the bill, but specifically one of the things that I wanted to work with the sponsors of the bill was under the current bill structure, there's a fundamental difference in the way we budget and the way we expend money. And what the bill did a direct diversion. And so it just took those sales and use tax and diverted those straight into the highway fund. Once that happens, you'll never see that again. It diverts those funds and you'll never see them again. What this section does says they're appropriated. So there's a fundamental difference between a diversion and an appropriation. And so what it does now is it appropriates those funds to the highway department out of the general fund. It's still sales and use taxes, but it's an appropriation now. And now that it's an appropriation, that will show up in the budget, and it'll say it's an ongoing expense. It's part of their standard budget, but you'll be able to track that. And the reason that I thought that was really important, so 2 years or 3 years, nobody's gonna remember if we did a diversion. You'll always know that we come in there and this body said, we're gonna appropriate money to the highway funds. It's an ongoing in their standard budget, but you can track those funds. And so that's basically what that section does. It's still funded at the current level. It's still out of sales and use tax, but versus diversion that you'll never see again, it's an appropriation. And that's a very key word in tracking how that money flows through the system. The other thing is what the tunnels is because sales and use taxes aren't trued up until the end of the fiscal year. This is appropriated out of the LSRA, and it's effective immediately. The quickest way to get money to YDOT to deal with the tunnel issue was not waiting for the Department of Revenue to true up and all those sales and use taxes, is just do an automatic direct appropriation out of the LSRA. When those sales and use taxes are all trued up at the end of the fiscal year, they will backfill the LSRA. So, but that was the quickest, most expedient way to get money to YDOT. So that's really the only two things that I felt were, we'd have the debate over the amount of funding, but I thought those were important to understand the difference between a diversion and an appropriation going forward. The money's still there, it's part of their standard budget, but future legislators will be able to see that we did do something, and we appropriated money, and it's part of their standard budget. So I'd stand for any questions of thought on that, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, Senators, I was able to travel through the tunnel on Sunday, coming back home. It's just a matter of time before we have another accident in there. The speed is choked down to 35 miles an hour for two-way traffic through one tunnel. It's a bad situation, and people aren't used to slowing all the way down to 35. It's created a bottleneck, and we need to get this money to the DOT so that they can expedite the inspections and repairing the other tunnel. Please consider voting aye on this. It really is necessary for all the travelers down I-80. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for this amendment, I want to thank everybody that worked hard on this, the Senator from Dover's Tower and Senator from Baggs here, and everyone that worked on it. It's very, very important. As your liaison to the Transportation Committee, I know the funds are needed, and I know everybody has a concern about how they're spending their funds and and where they're coming from. We will need to work out long-term funding, as my good colleague said. But this is a step in the right direction. I urge you to pass this amendment and eventually pass the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Further discussion on the amendment? Before the sponsor? Okay, back to you, Senator Driscoll.
Not to take much of your time, but I want to do a special thanks to the water guy from Little Snake over there. And not only did he help out a whole bunch on it, but he talked against diversions. I've never heard him talk against a diversion on water, so must be a good thing, folks.
All right. We're voting on third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 33, and it involves an appropriation, so roll call vote is required. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 33. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? No. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On the amendment, 29 aye, 2 no.
Third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 33 has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Discussion on the bill? Question being called. House Bill 33 having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 33, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? No. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? No. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Hutchings, aye to no. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 33, 25 aye, 6 no.
House Bill 33 having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 33 has passed the Senate. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I rise to explain my votes on this bill, which is something our rules do envision. Mr. President, I voted for the amendment, which makes the funding available promptly. I thought that was a good solution to the problem we're in, but then voted against the bill. And the reason is we have a long history of subsidizing from general funds and from our gasoline fuel tax, the special interest group that represents the operations that are really tearing up the roads and particularly I-80. And that group has resisted, and we have gone along with them, I think, when we shouldn't, Mr. President. But it's resisted having the users, the actual users that are causing the damage, pay for a greater share of the total funding. And Mr. President, I think that's a mistake, and I think something we should resist. We need to get a more fair way of funding our highways and allocate the burden of supporting those highways a little more in accordance with the groups that are benefiting from it, which I think are largely not even Wyoming citizens, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. So that's why I voted the way I did. And it appears to be inconsistent, but there's reasons for it.
All right. Thank you, Senator Scott. House Bill 72, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 72 engrossed, Protecting Women's Privacy in Public Spaces Act, sponsored by Representative Lawley, an act relating to the administration of the government.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 72, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 1, line 12, delete.
Thank you. Senator Larson.
Mr. President, thank you. I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 72 and ask for your favorable consideration. After visiting with others that are on this bill, there was an agreement that this amendment could go forward. It takes out K-12 from the bill and also takes out city and county jails out of the bill. It leaves in the correctional facilities. So I don't know if there'll be questions, but that's what it does.
Okay, discussion on the amendment? Questions on the amendment? Sensing you're ready to vote, we're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 72. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Sounds like the ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on and against the bill, this is a 19-page bill with, I think it was up to 12 or 13 amendments. I'm not entirely sure what we just did. And all of this is about bathrooms, something that we've managed for, well, I think for as long as we've existed as humanity, and done a pretty decent job. All of our local boards, all of our facilities, all have the capacity to deal with bathrooms, with changing rooms. It works out pretty well. You've got unique circumstances based on every building, based on every community. And right now, the system, Mr. President, just isn't broken sufficient to need again, I'll reiterate, 19-page bill going in the green books in Wyoming statute related to who can and can't use bathrooms at what time and how we would differentiate. Mr. President, I guess I'm a little bit amazed that we're in this situation. I feel like we've already passed several bills on this topic, in fact, so it's not as if this is the first authoritative bill addressing our bathroom challenges. This is bill I have lost count addressing our bathroom challenges Couldn't even tell you how many we've passed. I just feel like we've got other things to do, other things to work on, and that this is being managed. My constituents know how to use bathrooms. I think I could say that authoritatively. They've got it. I have some of these institutions that we're specifically targeting. They also are effectively managing how to deal with restrooms, making appropriate accommodations, taking feedback, and listening as is appropriate. Mr. President, not everything needs to be in the green books. We can have challenges and problems that are left to local communities and organizations to solve without bringing down the hammer of a law. And I know that we have anecdotal circumstances that are particularly in need of being addressed, and they are being addressed. This is incredibly prescriptive. It's confusing. It's not particularly well-drafted legislation. It's unnecessary. I feel like we could have just a little more confidence in the people of Wyoming to sort this one out themselves. I really do. We've had bathrooms for quite a while. We've done all right, Mr. President.
Anybody else wish to speak? Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like I said earlier, times have changed. This is an important bill. On and for it. Women, children are getting harmed in these bathrooms across the country. This is an important thing because some people really don't know what's the correct bathroom to use. And it's harmful to these young women. And with that, I'll just sit down. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, I would like to push back a little bit. Are we really taking care of the issue? Have we taken care of this issue? I challenge that. I don't think we have. As a mother to a college-age daughter, I don't think it's okay that they have to be in a locker room with a male changing. I don't think that's okay, and I don't think any of you should think that's okay. On and for this bill.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think anybody thinks it's okay. And anybody who votes against this bill, I don't think is signaling that they think it's okay. I think our historical protections associated with men's and women's changing rooms and bathrooms is good, and I'd like to see that continue. That said, I want to think about the policy here, and vote this bill up, vote it down. I'm gonna vote for it, because when I've reached out to all of the people affected by this bill, the fervor associated with this issue, in my view, is maybe overpowering good sense. And so I'm not gonna stop it. But here's where I think it's fundamentally the antithesis of our Wyoming values, which is personal responsibility. And this bill replaces personal responsibility and personal decision-making with government. That the government is here to protect you. That it's the government's responsibility to protect you everywhere. That it's the government's responsibility to police every bathroom and changing area in the state. And then to stop those actions to protect you. And a failure to do that results in the government being responsible. In comparison, think about this. Has there ever been a woman sexually assaulted in a locker room or a bathroom? Has a man ever been sexually assaulted in a locker room or a bathroom? What steps did we take to hold the government responsible? We took none. We took none. We instead held the individual responsible for that violation. So I think that the correct answer to this issue is holding individuals who knowingly and intentionally enter into the wrong designated private area to hold them responsible for that conduct. I don't think it should be a crime per se, depending on what happens in there. But I think that's the answer, is holding individuals responsible for their actions, not the government. If you go to page 8, and I want you to think about the bathrooms down by the Hirschler, because this bill applies to us. This bill applies to us. We are now liable. Page 8 of the bill. A person who, while accessing a changing area or restroom designated for use by the person's sex, encounters another person of the opposite sex in the designated changing area or restroom shall have a cause of action against the public facility. So even if we say, no, this is for women, or this is for men, and an individual of the opposite sex walks in there, automatically a cause of action is triggered. And when does that liability attach? To the capital, to the government, to any local government entity. It's when that government entity on page 8, line 10, failed to take reasonable steps to prohibit the other person from using that restroom. Reasonable steps may include, and I love this lawyer language, I mean, it is a plaintiff's lawyer's dream. Ambulance chasers unite. There is money to make. Reasonable steps may include, but are not limited to, posting appropriate signage and adopting policies and procedures for the enforcement of the provisions of this act. So what do you think that we should do immediately after we pass this law? What steps should we take to make sure that men are not entering into the women's restroom down there near the Hirschler in our building? What steps should we take to prohibit that and to verify? What if it's a man that looks like a woman? Who determines what reasonable steps take place? A jury does. And do you know how much money that costs? A lot. If you're getting into a jury fact question about what reasonable steps were taken to prohibit somebody from walking into a public facility, that's a very legitimate concern. This bill and these prohibitions apply to all local entities. So I just want to say how broad this is. A person who is aggrieved under this action can recover attorney fees. It's also really rare. So let me tell you what lawyers get to see. The American rule in this country is no attorney fees for either party, unless it's contracted for, except when it comes to a bathroom bill. So what that does when lawyers see attorney fees, they change their litigation strategy to maximize those fees. Why wouldn't they? They're entitled to them if they prevail. And so the whole litigation strategy changes in order to maximize the recovery from the entity who may be responsible. And who is that here? The entity responsible isn't the individual who knowingly and intentionally went into that other changing room, but it's the government. That's not personal responsibility. There is now an incentive to walk into another changing room, and there's no accountability on the individual who did it. That accountability is on the government. This is completely upending the American system of law for holding the personal action responsible for their conduct, and I think our Wyoming values of personal responsibility. But I'm going to vote this through because there's such strong support from everyone involved, including those public entities who are impacted. And so I can't wait to provide the presentations to my bar council, to all the bar in the state, to let them know of these new opportunities in which they are presented with, and we'll continue to work this issue in the coming years. Of that, I am confident. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Smith.
Mr. President, I had the privilege of listening to a person who should have clearly been the outright winner of an NCAA swim contest, but she was up against a 6'3", fully intact male who actually tied her, and even actually had the privilege of meeting her, and she said they're in the locker room, and she's like, I'm getting undressed in front of a fully intact 6'3" male that I'm going to have to compete against. Surely somebody will say something. Surely my coach will say something. Surely my brother, my dad, somebody will say something. Nobody said anything. You act like, oh, well, we've had plenty of laws. We don't need this. We absolutely do. We got to protect women. She should have been protected. She had no course of action. In fact, they actually gave she tied this guy, they gave the trophy to him, and her only recourse was to tell her story and for people to get mad enough that finally we had an executive order from a president that sort of restored things, right? But I mean, what was her course of action? My Wyoming values are to protect those who are the I would say I wouldn't say women are, well, anyway, we want to deliver the oppressor to the hand of the oppressor, and in that case, she was oppressed, right? Here's this girl trying to compete, and she's thinking against girls in this sport. But that, by the way, that's the big issue. You all know the story, right? That's the big one. But there are plenty of other cases. There are plenty of other predators. And if you don't create laws that block them out, they'll absolutely push it to the line. We're seeing it all over the place. And so I'm on and for this. It's a good bill, and we need to show our Wyoming values, and not just because there's support for it, but it is the right thing to do. It absolutely is. If you have a wife, if you have daughters, if you have grandchildren, you absolutely know that this is happening and it needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for this bill. I like the discussion. I don't like government intervention any more than anybody else, but this bill, it upholds our God-given principles of two genders and ensures the government abides by those principles. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to end up probably voting against this bill. I believe very strongly in what we're trying to do here, but there's a representative from a state in the Far East with the initials of AOC who made a comment a while back. If you're morally correct, you don't have to be factually or constitutionally correct. I think that's wrong. This bill is very poorly written. We absolutely need to do this, but I don't believe that this is the right vehicle to do it. I think it's headed in the wrong direction as far as the wording in the bill. It's a poorly written bill. We are capable of doing much better than this. We owe the people of Wyoming a better solution than a poorly written bill. It's a good project. It's the right idea. Poorly done. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cooper. Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. On and for the bill, not because it's perfect, because it's far from perfect. I think we can do a little bit better, cleaning up the language, tightening it up a bit about what you expect for reasonable actions. However, we've got a serious problem here in that we've got school districts is a great example, and other areas that they aren't following the rules I think the majority of Wyoming would like people to follow. Keeping men out of women's bathrooms, and for that matter, it's going to have the consequence keeping women out of men's bathrooms. I mean, there's going to be two sides to this, but I think it's high time this is addressed. It's a problem. I look forward to cleaning up the language a bit, but I'm willing to move forward with this because it's needed. Thank you. On and for the bill.
Thank you. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just wanted to ask why public schools and school districts were taken out on third reading amendment. I think we know that this has happened in other states and in the public school system where a child offended another child in a bathroom and then was transferred to another school district and offended another child in that school district. And when the father approached the school board about it, he was arrested. So I was just curious why that was put in there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Let's go to Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just not speaking on or against the bill, I just wanted to address the questions from the good senator about the K through 12 portion of the bill. The reason why that was removed is because this body already dealt with a bill that dealt specifically with K through 12 education. That bill is on the other end of the hall now. It's no longer ours. But I believe the intent is to let our policy decision of what we already passed be the guidepost for what is K through 12.
right, any other discussion? Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. I can't match the debate very well. Really appreciated the words from everyone. Good debate. One of the reasons I try to go home often is so that I can visit with the folks back home. And no, this is not a good bill, and it is not adequate. And I agree with the senator in the middle of the room. We can do better than this one. But based on my visits with everyone back home, this is a big deal. It was a big enough deal that I think it might have even played a role in the presidential election in our country. Ironically, an issue that took down a major beer company, I think, launched this thing, and it's a big deal to the people back home, to my friends and family, my neighborhood. So in spite of the fact that this is not a very good bill, that was pointed out by our majority floor leader. I'm going to support the bill. I'm going to hold my nose and vote for it. But I just want to warn everybody back home and everybody in here, there's going to be some unintended consequences on this one. Just be careful out there, because now you've got the government involved. That's never a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Cooper, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want each and every one of you in this room to stop and think before you vote. Did you read this bill? Did you read this bill? And I'm going to tell you that most of you that are going to vote for it are going to answer yourself, no, I didn't read it. No, I didn't read it. I read it. I didn't like what I read. It's a great idea. It's something that absolutely has to be brought forward, but this is the wrong way to do it. If you do this, you're not only failing yourself, you're failing your constituents. We promised them good, solid legislation. This is not it. Did you read the bill? And for most of you, the answer is no, I did not.
Let's go to Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I read the bill and I like it. Vote yes.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I certainly support the purposes of this bill. And there've been some abuses. I think a number of them, we're seeing what goes on in other states, but I think there've been some abuses here. The problem is that it seems to me that with the legal analysis we got, the unintended consequences of this bill are serious enough that we will put the whole business in disrepute. And by passing this bill, we will defeat the objectives of the bill, which are to put a stop to the intentional practice. And we need to have a bill that is more carefully crafted, that holds the individuals who do it responsible, and that holds governments that encourage that responsible, as opposed to just, if it happens in a government facility, the government is the money pot that can be sued. And I think by passing this bill, Mr. President, we may be doing the cause the bill is seeking, and they're seeking to advance and defeating the President, I'm not being clear, will do more harm to the purposes of the bill than we would by passing the bill. So I would urge us to defeat the bill, get it drafted right, do something about the way these things are drafted, try to get them improved, do something to improve the committee work involved. Let's get good legislation before us that won't produce the magnitude of unforeseen consequences I think we're dealing with here. So, Mr. President, on and against the bill.
Anybody else wish to speak on the bill? Senator Guru.
Thanks, Mr. President. So a wrong occurred. Something happened somewhere, someplace, and sometimes that seems to violate common sense, that doesn't make sense to us. How could this happen? Good senator across the room described it. Situation that occurred as he read it. Okay. Stipulated, granted. Seems like to me too that the law in that case of common sense got violated. But Mr. President, as I read this bill, the reaction to something that was in a lot of our minds nonsensical is to pass something that is nonsensical. Because you read this bill, I'm sorry, I read this bill and I agree with what's been said. I think it could cause more problems than it solves. It's going to put a lot of folks in a bad, I think it's going to put government and other institutions in a bad situation. But we've read it 3 times. It went through committee. It's had a very robust discussion, even including today. It's been amended to try to make what is truly, I believe, a bad bill as good as it can be. I still frankly don't think it's good enough. I know it's not good enough for me to vote for. I don't think it should be good enough for you to vote for as well. Like I say, you're taking something that doesn't make sense to us. As the good senator said from the capital city, it's a different time. Is it that different, Mr. President? Is the time that different that we have to have this? A 19-page bill to talk about how to go to the bathroom? Is that and what we can do when we're there? That's the answer to something that doesn't make sense to us? I don't know, Mr. President. I think we're better than this, but it has gone through a process. And for that, I applaud the body. But think for 1 second as we vote for this. Is this what we want to put in the laws of the state of Wyoming? It's going to have our name on it. Think about it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Dockstader.
Mr. President, I don't think the public cares whether it's 1 page or 19 pages. They want the problem resolved. They're concerned at all levels. In our public settings, whether it's here in the Capitol, our schools, our institution of higher learning. They're not caught up in whether the wording's just right in this bill. What they know is they want protection, especially for their youth. On and for the bill, call for the question.
Senator Nethercott for your second time.
Mr. President, thanks. I know that you're tired from hearing from me, but I want to make it clear. The only individual that is exposed to liability are your local schools at $5,000 per instance, plus attorney fees, with no protection of governmental claims. So although they want protections and clarity about this, which is the bill we passed out of this Senate, this bill exposes them to direct financial liability. So if you want to talk about what the actions we're taking in this chamber will affect those local budgets, I dare submit to you that direct exposure to liability, as identified in this bill, will cost them money. And I know that we want to protect the children, and I want to do that too. But if there is a way that doesn't result in litigation always being the remedy, where taxpayers pay and those responsible for the misconduct aren't held responsible, that's the solution that I'm looking for. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on the bill? It's like, sensing you're ready for the question. House Bill 72, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 72, Anderson? No. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Jones, aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 72, 25 aye, 6 no.
House Bill 72, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 72 has passed the Senate. House Bill 117, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 117 engrossed, omnibus water bill construction sponsored by the Water Committee, an act relating to water development projects.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, absent objection, I would request that House Bill 117 Omnibus Water Bill Construction be laid back for one day.
Hearing no objection, House Bill 117 has been laid back for one day. House Bill 275, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 275 engrossed, treatment of animals, sponsored by Representative Byron, an act relating to crimes and offenses.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 275, third reading amendment, number 1 to engrossed copy, page 7, line 18 after.
Thank you. Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 275 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Members, yesterday on second reading, there was some concern about aircraft and what their responsibility was. And that, if you'll take a look at the bill, that's on page 7, lines 9 through 21. And what this does, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, is this is identical language. It's actually under subsection A of that same paragraph or same section. So A talks about harassment, all that. This takes it into the new language, the same language, and says those folks are, doing their governmental purpose, particularly with predators. They are not required to stand by or ensure that that immediate kill occurs. So they will not be. I think that's intent. This gets to the greatest concern for many of us particularly in agriculture when it comes to predator control, is relieving this from this new responsibility. So, Mr. President, I'd stand for any questions and ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, I just wanted to salute the good senator from Campbell County, also senator from Sweetwater and up north of where I live, up along the Bighorn Mountains. We came together on this one, and it goes to the same issue that was brought up on second reading, but I think it's a little more comprehensive. Appreciate the work on this, and I think it will help to assure our ag producers out across that we want to take good care of them too. So on and for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Question being called. We're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 275. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? The third reading amendment number 1 has been adopted. Third reading amendment number 2.
House Bill 275, third reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 7, line 18 after.
Randy, could you read that again? You said number 1. We're on number 2.
I beg your pardon. House Bill 33, third reading amendment number 2, page 1, line 3 after.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move third reading amendment 2 to House Bill 275 and would ask for your favorable considerations. members of the body, what this just goes in, and it goes in and it gets rid of the forfeiture if you commit the crime. And so, right now, you're subject to fines, you're subject to jail time, you're subject to revocation of any future hunting licenses, but you're also subject to taking away any of your property. And I don't disagree with the intent of the bill. How many penalties do we have to lay down on people? First, you get a fine, then you get jail time, then you get revocation of any future hunting licenses, and then we're going to confiscate all of your property. And this could be literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of property. Okay with the bill, I just think this goes just a little bit too far to have 4 different penalties on here for committing this crime. So would stand for any questions. If there's no questions, I would ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Discussion on the amendment? Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. I haven't had a chance to visit with the good senator about this, but I'm on and against the amendment. Folks, this is a policy discussion, and it's really all about this. We had a good discussion on 275. You know what it stands for. You know what the bill does. Regarding this, there are 2 different penalties in the game and fish statutes. Wanton destruction of big game animals or taking trophy game out of season. Each of those has the penalties that were outlined by the good senator. If you think that mistreatment of animals, the possession of, dominion and control, and intentionally and purposefully torturing an animal out there, think of our wildlife. If you think that does not rise to shooting a bull elk out of season, then you vote for this amendment. If you think it is equal to taking that bull elk out of season, then we should vote this amendment down. This is a serious bill, and I think it should be treated seriously. The expectation that we have of people out there in our wild lands taking care of our wildlife. We don't believe in this torture, and we don't want it to be happening, Mr. President. I would say on and against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on and for the amendment, I agree with everything my good friend from Trona County just said about this being serious and about it being equal to those crimes. That's absolutely true. Honestly, Mr. President, the concern I have is that forfeiture of assets is, in my opinion, an inappropriate and awkward feature that we have in statute elsewhere, and adding to it seems like adding to a problem. We have provisions that allow for fines that are through the judicial branch as part of a criminal prosecution are appropriate, but the idea that you've got equipment on you, you used equipment, and that can be seized as an asset forfeiture without necessarily having that be part of the penalty. It's an unreasonable aspect of the way we govern, and I don't disagree that, honestly, this is certainly rising to the same level as the crimes that are currently authorized for that type of asset forfeiture. The overall idea of providing a mechanism for asset forfeiture that is in addition to the criminal penalties just seems a bit barbaric to me, Mr. Chairman. It's not an appropriate exercise of law.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for this amendment. That was the reason that I brought up the question yesterday. Obviously, I'm not well-versed in all of the statutes and laws, but I don't personally agree with the current statutes in there as far as taking a bull elk out of season and seizing people's property. I can see fines and you know, creating misdemeanors or felonies, whatever. But seizing people's personal property in any of these instances, I don't agree with. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? Question being called, we're voting on third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 275. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Question being called. House Bill 275, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 275, third reading roll call. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crump? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? No. Baru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? No. President Biteman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing.
I don't know.
Hicks, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 275, 27 aye, 4 no.
House Bill 275, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 275 has passed the Senate. House Bill 289, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal 3, sponsored by Representative Geringer, an act relating to public health and safety.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I ask that House Bill 289 be laid back for one day.
Hearing no objection, House Bill 289 is laid back for one day. House Bill 316, third reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 316, engrossed, School Finance Model Recalibration 2, sponsored by Management Council, an act relating to school finance.
Discussion on the bill. Oh, Senator Nethercott.
Absent objection, Mr. President, I would ask to lay back House Bill 316 for one day.
Hearing no objection, House Bill 316 is laid back for one day. Okay. Okay. Signing of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 34.
House Enrolled Act Number 34, being original House Bill 242, manufacturers and dealers of new trailers changes, an act relating to motor vehicles.
I am about to sign House Enrolled Act number 34, being original House Bill 242. I have so signed. We have a joint conference committee report, number 323, regarding Senate File 32, but I don't see Senator Pappas anywhere, so maybe we should hold off on that. Oh, there you are. Are you ready to go on your joint conference committee report? Okay, we can do it after lunch if that's okay. That's all we got to do is appoint a new one? Okay, I'm sorry. All right. You want the same one, I'm assuming. Okay, so we're going to appoint a conference committee report, or joint conference committee number 2 regarding Senate File 32. The committee will consist of Senator Pappas, chairman, and Senators Kolb and Rothfuss. Okay, there's that. Anything else before we head off to lunch? Randy has a report? Okay. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, February 26, 2025. Message number 373. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 64, chemical abortions ultrasound requirement. Ayes 47, noes 12, excused 3. Message number 374. Joint Conference Committee number 1 appointed. Mr. President, House appointed Joint Conference Committee to meet with Like Committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 127. House conferees are Representative Tarver, Chairman, Representative Webb, and Representative Yin. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. All right, Madam Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2 p.m.
Recess till 2 p.m. Any announcements? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Committee number 10, Labor, Health, Social Service, meet at 12:15 W110 to hear 5 bills. House Bill 164, medical prescriptions off-label purposes, carryover. House Bill 135, autologous or direct blood donations, carryover. House Bill 96, prohibiting mask and vaccine testing discrimination, also a carryover. House Bill 136, volunteer first responder health insurance provisions. House Bill 222, Medical Ethics Defense Act 2. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barlow. Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Your committee number 7, corporations, elections, and political subdivisions. We've only got 3 bills left, and we're going to hear them upon adjournment today. House Bill 228, prohibition on private funds for conducting elections. House Bill 318, engrossed maintenance of voter lists. House Bill 337, engrossed prohibition for and funding of ballot measures. And this would probably be 10 to 15 minutes upon adjournment.
Thank you. Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, Center Minerals Business and Economic Development will meet today upon noon recess, about 12:30, Capitol Extension Room W4 for 2 bills. House Bill 160, we have heard the public opinion on that, and we're ready to vote on that. And House Bill 137, revisers bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 1, Judiciary, will meet upon this noon recess at 12:15 in W002 to consider 3 bills. House Bill 62, prostitution amendments, House Bill 83, child custody, sex offense conviction presumption, House Bill 223, preventing strategic lawsuits against public participation.
Thank you. Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources Committee will meet in W4 downstairs tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to take up 3 bills. House Bill 307, engrossed poll watchers, polling station observation. That'll be continued from 2 days ago. House Bill 200, engrossed parent rights amendments. And House Bill 280, if we have time, Mr. President, sex offender registration. Again, 280 will be, if time permits. And a reminder that we will meet with our counterparts here in a few minutes in the Supreme Court chamber to take up interim topics, TRW.
Thank you. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 announcements. First, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., your Joint Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs Committee will meet in room 110 to visit interim topics. And also tomorrow at noon, I want to give my Transportation Committee heads up. We will be interviewing the governor's appointee for the Transportation Commission, Mr. Marlo Scherbel, upon noon recess in room 6 in the extension.
Thank you. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your number 3 committee revenue will be meeting at 12:15 in room 6 to talk about House Bill 279, property tax exemptions, order of application, and ranked choice voting prohibition. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations will be meeting at 12:45 in room 113. We'll be dealing with supplemental K through 12 school facilities appropriations, interviewing the governor's appointee, Stacia Berry, to the Wyoming Office of State Lands and Investments. Then we will be dealing with 4 bills continued from yesterday. House Bill 270, Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, House Bill 271, Common School Accounts, House Bill 293, repealing the school foundation program, and 294, federal mineral royalties. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Okay, you've all heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. The Senate will stand at recess until 2 p.m.